Since we're going to be talking about the finale of Spider-Man Far From Home, you probably guessed there are major spoilers ahead. If not, major spoilers ahead. There. Today, we're going to be talking about the final words of Quentin Beck, better known as Mysterio. Although his scheme didn't work out quite the way he had hoped, it did leave us on quite the cliffhanger as we head into Phase 4 of Marvel movies. After losing his job and being humiliated at the hands of Tony Stark, Quentin Beck decided to turn things around and become a hero, which would almost be inspiring if it was at all true. Instead, he just wanted the glory and accolades of becoming a hero without any of the actual world-saving stuff. He and his fellow disgruntled ex-Stark Industries employees put together some truly incredible special effects utilizing the latest technological advancements. Couldn't he have just foiled a couple of bank robberies or something and actually gone legit? Apparently not, because Mysterio tricked Peter Parker into thinking he'd take over for him as the head hero in charge in order to get his hands on those sweet Edith glasses. But instead of going legit, Mysterio faced off against Spider-Man atop the famous Tower Bridge in London, and let's just say it didn't end well for him. Despite all of his impressive illusions, he ended up taking a bullet, so maybe he should have channeled some of his significant resources into bulletproof attire. There were obviously plenty of differences between the MCU's Mysterio and the one from the comic books, but one thing they have in common is the love of a good old-fashioned monologue. Before shuffling off this mortal coil, Quentin had some final thoughts to share with Peter Parker. In a nutshell, he tells Peter that there's no limit to the things people can be convinced to believe. Although he's a villain, he does have a point there. Just consider the fact that there are people out there who believe the Earth is flat. Are there any flat Marvel Cinematic Universes out there? How silly. Everyone knows the MCU multiverse is a tetrahedron. Basically, Mysterio is saying that although his scheme didn't end up working, it was still a good plan in theory. After all, people hailed Tony Stark as a hero despite the fact that he created Ultron, conscripted a teenager into fighting super powerful heroes like Captain America and Scarlet Witch, and really screwed over Adrian Toomes and his employees. Just like Quentin, Tony didn't have any real superpowers. He was just a dude with some expensive and potentially dangerous gadgets. After Peter defeats Mysterio, he uses Edith to put an end to the drones currently rampaging through London and threatening his friends. However, the phrasing is kind of confusing, and Peter can be heard commanding Edith to execute the drones. Seriously, that's just terrible phrasing. We know that what he was really doing was deactivating them, but it certainly sounded as though he was commanding them to attack. Unfortunately, thanks to Mysterio's allies, this poorly phrased moment ended up being broadcast to the general public, and it certainly sounded like Spider-Man was a bad guy. Not to mention the fact that none other than Jonah Jameson was screaming that Spider-Man is a villain. Mysterio was the greatest hero of all time, and oh, by the way, Spider-Man is really a high school kid named Peter Parker. So while you might hope nobody will believe Jonah Jameson when he says Spider-Man is a criminal, the sad reality is that there are plenty of people who will. As Mysterio said, people really will believe anything. Peter's unceremonious unmasking during the mid-credit scene of Far From Home provides a contrast to Tony Stark declaring that he was Iron Man at the end of the first MCU film. In the comic books, Tony actually convinces Peter to unmask himself as part of the Civil War storyline. He believes it'll help renew the public's trust in superheroes, but all it really does is make life a whole lot more difficult for Peter. He and all of his loved ones are immediately targeted by villains, and Peter ends up getting pushed to his breaking point. Of course, since this is the world of comic books, eventually there's some magic which causes everybody to forget Peter is Spider-Man, and his life gets back on track, more or less. It'll be interesting to see if this version of Peter Parker ends up getting a similar mulligan, or if he's forced to live with the consequences of his battle with Mysterio. After all, he's far from the only superhero whose secret identity is well known in the MCU. He might end up having to resort to wearing the standard Marvel hiding in plain sight outfit, which consists of a hoodie, hat, and sunglasses. Will Peter find evidence to exonerate him and condemn Mysterio is one question, and will anyone believe him is another one entirely. What do you think about Mysterio's role in Spider-Man Far From Home? Are you interested to see how his legacy plays out, or do you think his plan was too over the top? Let us know what you think in the comments section below, and then click on that subscribe button for more videos from CBR. Bye for now.